Hi, everybody. Anthony Ross here, back for another drawing assignment. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take either your Kleenex drawings or the scribble drawings, and we're going to use geometric shapes like the sphere, like the sphere, like the cone, like the cube. And these are shapes that we see in everyday life all the time, both, well, especially man-made structures, but also in organic structures. The cube, let me get the camera back here. The cube, and also the, I'll draw it up here, cylinder. The cylinder. So these are our shapes. Oh, I'm bumping the camera a little bit here, so let's just try and get it a little further. Okay, so now I'm going to focus on these main two that we got here. Um, and what we want to do now, we have these scribble sketches, and we could look at our Kleenex sketches as well. And like I talked about while we were doing those, what kind of lacks in the scribble and the Kleenex approach is structure. And by structure, I mean these three-dimensional shapes. Because if I do a scribble sketch, I'm not necessarily thinking in three dimensions. The more you become aware of three dimensions and using these shapes, the more you can bring that into your Kleenex and scribble things. But there's still an issue, especially with the Kleenex drawings, where the lighting wouldn't match up the way it would if it was actually constructed out of three-dimensional forms. So what we want to do, and it's kind of trick. Well, no, never mind. What we want to do here is we're going to think about how do we turn these guys, and how do we understand, like, if we had to make it out of Play-Doh in a three-dimensional way, right? So if I even use my kneaded eraser here, we have a cone. Just going to stick it on there. We have a cone for the top of the head. We have a really small, I'm going to get little eraser bits all over the place. We have a really small little ear, which I'm pasting it on, but actually, it's got some volume, right? It's not flat. This cone is not flat. I want to think of it as a three-dimensional, and if I'm gonna shape it and have it round, it's three-dimensional, right? But I also want to stick it to the paper here, so sticking it to the paper. We have this big round head, which is not necessarily this exact shape, but basically a sphere, right? A round sphere. And then on top of that head, we're going to have this big nose shape, which is kind of a sphere, but it's also going to be a different shape. It's kind of got this triangular point, and then underneath that is mustache, which I don't have any eraser for. But if I have this nose shape, and then I attach an ear down here at the bottom, so we get an ear in the nose shape, and then we have a cone. Oops, I'm losing cone for the hat. So then we have a hat. Now, this is what I'm talking about. So we want this three-dimensionality, and we want to understand how do we create this in a drawing, right? So I only have one ear on here. So if I switch it to the other side, we have, you know, like this picture right here. So I'm going to destroy this now. But that's a really handy thing, and you could actually, use that. But what I want to, so what I mean by use that is you can use a kneaded eraser. You could actually make things out of clay. Use whatever helps you to do this exercise. And after I destroyed that, I was kind of like thinking it probably wouldn't have been useful to keep it, but too late. So one thing I'm a little confused about here is I'm going to go off what I see in front of me and not what the camera shows, because it looks like the camera. So yeah, because if the camera reverses everything, so what I'm actually seeing in front of me, it's going to look normal to you, but I'm getting a little confused while I'm looking at both screens occasionally. So we have a sphere, right? Not a perfect sphere. Probably want a little bit more volume here and a little less here. We have a sphere, and the sphere has a center line. We're creating this center line where it is between the eyebrows, right? That's what we're thinking about. That's what I'm thinking about when I do this. So I'm not drawing exactly what this is. I am going to think about it and look at the forms and what I have there. But what I want to consider is to simplify it. So I'm really considering, like a ball of clay, what am I seeing? What are these shapes? How do I bring these shapes into my drawing? So now he's got a big nose, and it's kind of a big round circle. And I'm also going to bring in symmetry because this drawing doesn't necessarily have it totally. We want to bring that in. So I'm just going to start simple. So we do have this big round shape, and then I have this triangle shape. So that's kind of like we have a cone attached to an oval, kind of a wide sphere, right? And then we're going to have a big nostril here, which I could also draw as a kind of spherical oval shape. And if this nose is going here, then we can see that this is the space we have before the nostril, right? So if we're following that same roundness of the form of our sphere, this is kind of that little shape that we have. So on the other side here, we would have a little shape. So if I was going to draw through the form, I'd kind of have a little shape like this on this other side here, which means rather than what we see here, it kind of looks like a really wide nose in a way. What we're getting from this drawing is that the nose is actually quite long forward. Because if I was going to draw the center line from here, the center line of this nose would kind of go out all the way there, and then it would go down there. Because I'm not going to see a lot of this side if the center line is here. And this is going to make more sense. So I'm going to leave it there for now. And I'm going to draw this again. But I'm going to draw it facing us. So now the center line we have is in the middle of the sphere because we're turning the sphere to now look at us. So if I have a sphere, let's make this a little ball, and I have a line in it. There's a line right here in the sphere. It's hard to see, but there's a line. And if I'm looking at it here, which is straight, and we turn it, this is what we're seeing at an angle. So let me just continue drawing here. So we have that, and it's about this far. Say the sphere, we have it about the same height, and it's about the same size as this previous sphere, which is valuable because I'm going to draw this center line, and then I'm going to think about where's the nose. Not center line, rather, but like an eyebrow line, that sort of line. And then how high is the nose? And the nose is going to be like kind of like this shape. And we know there's a distance from here to here. We want to know that distance, right? So that's about where it's turning, but it's not going to be, it's going to maybe be about like that, perhaps. And over here, at that same distance. So that's the kind of thing we're doing here. And this nose, so now I can actually bring in those nostrils, which brings this nose to touch this corner, right? So we have this line here, which is the same as that line. So we want this nose to touch the corner. And then we're going to have the cone. We look at the center of where that cone is. Be here. We're going to have that go down to where this is here. I hope this is making some sense, or at least interesting, even if it doesn't make sense so far. So then there's a sphere and another sphere for these nostrils. And so you can see that what we're getting is we have the cone underneath this oval shape with these two others, not well oval, but it's a sphere. You know, it's three-dimensional, but it's an oval. And then we have these two spheres that I'm using for the nostrils. So I'm simplifying all that. And then we have this little section, which isn't necessarily the eyes, because the eyes are much wider here. But what this section is around here. If I brought a line up that followed the center line, it's just creating a distance that is a measurement that gives us clarity on where does the nose meet the rest of the face. So we're going to continue to expand this. It's a challenging exercise, and this might be a more challenging picture to do this from, but it's really what you want to practice to develop an understanding. How do you bring to life, a character, an idea, um, and really imagine it in 3 dimensions. You got to use these, and then you need to really understand how are you using this. So we're going through that process structurally, and then you can draw this without doing this so specifically um, at some point when you're fluid with this. But you got to have the structure there to light it, to have it read 3 dimensionally, to really make it come alive. And if you're gonna pass this on to a sculptor, like your drawings to a sculptor or an animator, or there's these different things you could do if you were in like a production line of sorts. But you would want to know it 3 dimensionally and inside and out so that somebody else could sculpt it or animate it in 3 dimensions. Or if you're just doing an illustration for yourself, this is going to give you flexibility to move things around and not rely entirely on a reference or the one pose that you did that might have structural errors and things that don't make sense because you didn't actually build it out like this. So, this might look cool, and that's good in its own way, but like he's not really, the nose is more to this side um than the other side of the face, and there's things that just don't make sense, right? So we're changing the drawing, but we're keeping the essence, hopefully, is the idea. So back to this. So I'm just gonna kind of dab this out a bit. And now as I said this, we kind of just have this little section here that we've created a little pocket for. Well, he's got these big round eyes that come out of that. And so really, I don't see this, but there's got to be a big eyeball in there if we're going to have a big lid. So like what would happen if he opened his eye, right? I want to know that. So there's a big eyeball in there. Um, and that means also if we're going to draw it on the other side. So if I have a big eyeball in here, so now we look here and we go, okay, well, it fits on the circle. But if I bring it to the front now it's popping out the side of his head. Do I want to do that? Well, I can, and it's I don't see why not. Um, but it's gonna change the look of the character when he turns to look at us straight on. And so I got to think, well, okay, maybe it looks cool here, but do I want him to look like this when he looks at me straight on, right? Another thing with this nose I'm looking at is now that he's looking at us, or now that I put this eye in here, I'm thinking maybe the nose should actually be more narrow, which is kind of what I was thinking initially when I looked at this shape. Because if this is the edge of the sphere, well, that nose can't actually be too wide because there's not going to be that much space. So you got to go back and forth and kind of think about, okay, what makes sense in all directions. So if I narrow this nose a bit, still going to have the nostrils, still going to have this cone. It's going to be a bit narrower. And then we're going to think, okay, can I fit, an eyeball in here like this? And I'm looking at this space from the center line. How far is the eyeball? It's kind of like that. And you could use a ruler, probably smart to do and actually, get these lines. So this is the bottom. Got another one here. We think of that. Got this straight 90-degree, and that's the bottom of the circle, and then we got the bottom of the nose, and we got the bottom of the nostrils, which I can see these would have to be actually more like from the front, look a bit more like ovals or like longer ellipses. And then from the top of the nose, we can go across again, making sure I'm at the 90-degree following that. And then we got the top of the head. And so we're getting more accurate proportions out, right? So back to the eye, we got that one eye. We're going to do this other eye. So this is kind of interesting. His eyes are quite large because he's got this super long bend. If I look at where did I end that? I go across well there. So he's got this really long bend like that. We can do the other side. And then we have the other eyeball on this one. So we have the 3/4, which I'm gonna have to erase this because I'm gonna add a mustache or whatever. But we got a 3/4, which is actually this, this angle, right? So it's looking not straight on. This is via straight on down here. Straight on, 3/4. And then another one to do would be the profile, where we're looking left or right, not at the camera and not to the side of it, right? So we got these eyes, got them in there. I have a meeting in 15 minutes, so we're going to see what I can do to get this done. This nose is rather long, but it kind of is pretty long there. So see if we want to keep it that long. We're going to get the hat in. So the hat is a cone, right? That's what the hat looks like. So I can kind of wrap it around the head here, just above the eyes. I can kind of use one thing I also want to consider, say if I go to this straight on drawing, I can draw this sort of eyebrow kind of thing, but I can go from side to side and I got to match it height wise there to there, right? So we start at this corner and go to this corner and we do the rhythm across. So you're bringing your drawing to have a cohesiveness, to bring things together from side to side that way, right? And then he's kind of got these little wrinkles in the front that match up with the center line. So if I do it here, we're going to do that same thing. We're going to get this, we're going to follow under where this is going to match up here, side, side, and then we're going to do these little wrinkles that lead into the middle of the forehead. And then we have his hat. So I'm going to his hat, and I've got there's a little bit of a S curve. So it's like there's a little bit of that going on with his hat. But I'm just going to simplify it. I'm just going to make it round, following the sphere. And then it's going to be, if I'm going to draw through this, that cone is sitting right on top of that sphere. And instead of making it kind of angled more, well, do I want to? So like if I was going to draw an actual cone at that angle, the center line of that cone, like it is here, to the middle of the bottom of the cone there, the center line would be maybe here or something like that. So I could do that, or I can kind of, yeah, I'll do that. I was just thinking, should I make it a little more complicated? But let's just keep it simple and not really have the top of the cone that bends a little bit. So something like that. I think I want to extend this a little bit. There. So now let's just make sure this is straight. And we're going to draw a line here. Same thing. We're going to draw, where does this hat start, and then it goes down pretty low, but that's kind of the back of the head. We're not going to see that around this big eyeball. I'm going to go down, around, like that, and up with the straight following that center line, the middle of that cone, and then we're going to connect it from side to side, create that hat. There we go. So next step, we have the ears pretty low. So if I follow this sphere a bit, maybe I want to extend, kind of two lines to kind of get the sides of the head here. So kind of do that like I have in my sketch, my scribble drawing. And then we're going to do a sphere, which, the ear is not a round sphere like this. It's going to be, it's going to have some volume, but it's going to be more like this, right? But the angle of the 3/4, we're going to have it look like that more so. But when I'm going to the front, I want it to be the same height. So I'm going to go back, do that, draw another line, connecting the top of the ear at the bottom of the ear. But it's not going to be, it can come out a little bit, but it's going to be, where he's looking at us now. So it's going to be more like this. And I'm keeping it simple, just a ellipse. I can go back over and refine all this stuff after. Now we're working on all the details, right? So now if we look at the mustache ends underneath the ear a good little ways, at least on that one side. The other side is going up in the air. Do I want to make it asymmetrical? For the sake of this drawing, because we're doing it this way, I'm going to make it the same on both sides. So we're going to go with this mustache coming out of underneath the side of the nostril a little ways. And then it's going to have this angle downwards. Same on both sides, same symmetry, both sides. And then it's going to have a little bit of an angle up. Don't really need to worry about those being totally accurate, or symmetrical, like close enough. And the mustache starts a little bit under this giant triangle of the nose. So a little bit under that we have, and I can just kind of, I want to go up a little bit and then curve, go across, and then do the same, kind of link it on the other side. So kind of doing another side to side rhythm connecting those, right? Now to do it back here, so we're going to have a little bit of mustache come out, and then we're going to have an angle down. And I could look where on the eye, if I do a vertical line upwards, where on the eye does it meet? It actually meets kind of right. Say there's going to be a little bit of curve that we see here that we don't see here. So I'm going to make this mustache have a little bit more of an angle, because now we're kind of seeing it like curve around the head of it, even though it's a straight line. It's kind of, we're getting a little bit of, it just kind of, it lines up with the eye this way. If I bring that, so when he looks, it's a very paper shaped, like cutout mustache, but we could work on actually adding a bit of volume so it does wrap around the face a little bit, and that would work with this. So then we're going to have a little angle for that. And if I look at this other eye, we're not really going to fully see where it is, but if I could do a vertical line, this is wrapping around, and if we line it up where the mustache is meeting here with the vertical line, I want to think, where is it going to meet on the other side? And I think it's going to be something like that, and this will have a similar angle. So if I think about where is the other nostril, well, I think about this cone, and I think it's going to be, somewhere here. And I could also go like, okay, well, if I draw a vertical line from this nostril, where is it going to meet up with the eye? It's kind of going to be right around there. so to speak. So there we go. Maybe I'm going to bring that mustache in a little bit then. And we're going to have the mustache there as well, and a little bit of an angle. And we're going to have this curve, but the curve, it's got to be lower than the triangle. So it's going to be like something like this. And yeah, this isn't perfect, but the idea is there. But the thing is with what I'm drawing here, what I realize now is, okay, well, this mustache, because we're kind of drawing it really flat, unless I add volume and really create this mustache to like be more like this, where we have this volume happening, right? So the mustache isn't just a flat object, but it's happening with a three-dimensionality. This part of the nose is not going to meet the mustache unless I change the angle of that to meet the mustache, which works because we don't actually know what the angle of this is going this way. We're deciding it right here. We're deciding what that angle is. And then I get this curve up there, and we're creating that angle as well. So then we got these ears, and we have 5 minutes, and we're gonna look, okay, here, this angle, we can see where the mustache meets the ear. And then we see that the chin continues out under the mustache. And instead of making it as large as it is there, I'm just going to make it shorter or smaller, so there's not as much room under the mustache. Um, and but I do want to think about where's the ear on the other side, and it's probably where we can't see it. But I could have a little bit of cheek that kind of follows that initial sphere to connect that. So, and then we're going to do the same thing here. So we're going to think about this chin. Where's the chin? It's not any lower than this line. And it connects to the sides of the mustache here. So I can kind of just make like 3 lines. So we get this line, this middle line, and then another line going out that way in the center line. The head would go there. And then that angle continues to reach the ear. So I know that was a lot fast, perhaps really complicated because this is a challenging thing, and maybe you're new to this and you've never even considered any of this before. That's okay. So somebody's got to introduce it to you if you're gonna, start to get it going, and no better way than just to dive in and have it shown to you. So now you can see like this original drawing, it's a scribble, it's got a cool thing going, but this has structure. And it's also got symmetry, and it's got organization, right? This thing, you could build this out of wood. You could like chisel these shapes out of wood. This, you couldn't really do that because it's too fluid. So ideally, a good drawing is a mix of straight lines and curved lines, right? And curved lines connected to other curved lines, so we get this S, right? So you can think about this as lines like that, lines like this, and lines like that, which do spell letters, C-S-I, but it's also, we're not actually talking about letters, we're talking about lines, right? A good drawing has some flow and it's got structure. This allows us to kind of have like a mind map of things. We're not thinking about connecting, and we kind of make different connections as we're drawing, and we go, oh, wow, look at that. That's kind of interesting. Then we bring it into a structural, uh, you know, image. So if you think about doing writing, you can make a mind map. You could say, art, and then you go, well, paper. Paper comes up, and you go, from paper we have pencils, and from pencils we go pens, and then I don't know what's here. We just go pictures, and pictures connects to paper, and you create this mind map, and then you go, okay, well, this inspires me to write about this time or this specific pen I used and how I used it on this paper and it was really good for that paper. And you're doing a mind map that helps you to write like an essay or some kind of story about what you created in the mind map, right? So the scribble drawing is like this mind map. You get this crazy idea, and then you go, okay, well, now I need to actually add structure. So this is a sphere. This is a this is a cube here. This is a cone underneath here. And then instead of just getting this mess of ideas, you actually go, okay, well, now I have like the head of a snake that was not just an abstract idea anymore, but you're getting this real, believable thing to come forth into reality that there's three dimensions and you can build on it and create a story that works, right? So I hope this was educational, informative, interesting. Um, and I'll later on clean this up and show you a version where there's not all these measurement lines, and we'll see exactly, what we got here in the full structural integrity. So that's the idea. So go to your scribble drawings, go to your Kleenex drawings. It's going to be a little different with the Kleenex drawing, but it will be similar for sure. And I look forward to seeing what you get out of this. So hope you enjoy creating, and we will see you next time.